Why would one man choose to destroy an entire people? What kind of hatred could justify gas chambers, death trains, and the loss of millions of innocent lives? This is not an easy story to confront, but it is one that must be understood. Today, we look into one of the darkest chapters in human history, the obsession of Adolf Hitler with the destruction of the Jewish people. Where did this hatred begin? How did it spread so rapidly, and why did so many follow him? These questions remain deeply unsettling, yet they are essential if we are to understand how such tragedy became possible. This is not simply the story of one dictator. It is a warning about how hatred, ignorance, and indifference can evolve into something far more dangerous. During World War II, millions of people were persecuted, imprisoned, and killed not for what they did, but for who they were. Jews, Roma, political opponents, people with disabilities, and homosexuals were all targeted by a system designed to dehumanize and eliminate them. Among these horrors, one question continues to echo through history. Why did Hitler hate the Jews? The answer is complex. His antisemitism did not emerge overnight, nor was it based on a single experience. Instead, it grew out of a combination of personal failures, social influences, and widespread prejudice that already existed in Europe at the time. Hitler was not born with this hatred. In his early life, there is little evidence of strong hostility toward Jews. Like many others, he experienced struggles, family conflict, rejection, and when combined with fear, propaganda, and silence from those who might have resisted. It reminds us that hatred rarely begins at its most extreme. It grows, step by step, often unnoticed until it is too late. To truly grasp how the world reached that point, we have to look deeper, not just at Hitler as an individual, but at the environment that allowed his ideas to spread. Only by understanding that path can we hope to prevent anything like it from happening again.
Long before the speeches, the war, and the rise of power, the story begins with a young man filled not with authority, but with frustration. Before the horrors of the Holocaust, there was disappointment, rejection, and a dream that never came true. In his early years, Adolf Hitler was not focused on politics or destruction. He wanted something far simpler: to become an artist, to paint, and to build a life through creativity. At the age of 18, he left his hometown in Austria and moved to Vienna, carrying his sketches and ambitions with him. His goal was to enter the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, one of the most respected institutions of its kind. But his hopes were quickly shattered. He was rejected, not once, but twice. The Academy judged that his work lacked the skill required for formal training. What he saw as talent, they did not recognize. That rejection would become a turning point in his life. Lost and humiliated, Hitler struggled to survive in Vienna. He lived in shelters, sold small painted postcards, and spent long periods isolated from society. These years were marked by hardship, loneliness, and uncertainty. But during this time, he was also exposed to ideas that would shape his thinking. Newspapers, political pamphlets, and conversations in cafes introduced him to nationalism, racism, and conspiracy theories that were already circulating widely in European society. Vienna at the time was a diverse and complex city, home to many different ethnic and cultural groups. While this diversity created a rich cultural environment, it also fueled tension and prejudice among certain segments of the population. Antisemitic ideas were not new, and figures like Karl Lueger had already used such sentiments for political gain. Hitler absorbed these influences gradually. His personal frustrations began to blend with these harmful ideologies, creating a mindset where blame was placed on others rather than on his own circumstances. This transformation did not happen overnight. It was slow and shaped by a mix of personal failure and exposure to toxic beliefs. Instead of accepting rejection as part of life, Hitler began to look for scapegoats. Over time, these ideas hardened into a worldview built on resentment and division. What started as the disappointment of a failed artist slowly evolved into something far more dangerous. Understanding this phase is important because it shows how destructive ideologies can take root. The story does not begin with power or violence. It begins with frustration, influence, and choices. And from those early moments, the path toward one of history's darkest outcomes.
Figures like Karl Lueger showed how powerful words could be when combined with emotion and fear. He was charismatic, strategic, and openly anti-Semitic, using hatred as a political tool, and it worked. For a young Adolf Hitler, this was a lesson. He began to understand that language could move crowds, shape beliefs, and ultimately influence entire nations. Slowly, the dream of becoming an artist faded, replaced by something more rigid and darker. What remained was a growing belief that ideas, if delivered with conviction, could reshape reality itself. At the time, Vienna was not just a cultural center, but also a city filled with tension. Different ideologies clashed daily. Nationalists, liberals, socialists, conservatives, all competing for influence. Beneath its artistic beauty, the city was struggling with deep divisions. For someone already dealing with failure and isolation, this environment became more than just a backdrop. It became a source of identity. Hitler, living on the margins of society, spent his time observing, reading, and absorbing the ideas circulating around him. In cafes and public spaces where art and philosophy were once central topics, conversations increasingly shifted toward politics, race, and conspiracy theories. Publications spread claims that Jews controlled industries and institutions, presenting these ideas as facts rather than prejudice. Over time, such narratives became normalized. For many, they blended into everyday thinking. For Hitler, they offered something even more powerful, a way to explain his own struggles without accepting personal responsibility. This shift in thinking did not happen suddenly. It developed gradually as frustration met influence. Instead of seeing rejection as a personal setback, Hitler began to adopt a worldview where blame was placed on entire groups of people. This kind of thinking was simple, emotionally satisfying, and dangerously misleading. It replaced self-reflection with resentment and turned disappointment into hostility. Political figures and writers of the time reinforced these ideas. Some promoted distorted interpretations of science, presenting concepts like racial hierarchy as if they were proven truths. These pseudoscientific beliefs gave prejudice a false sense of legitimacy. Over time, such ideas shaped a broader ideology, one that divided humanity into superior and inferior groups. Within this framework, Jews were portrayed not just as different, but as a central threat. Vienna did not instantly transform Hitler into the figure he would later become, but it played a critical role in shaping his thinking. It exposed him to the idea that organized hatred could be used as a political force. It showed him how fear and blame could unite people under a single narrative. Most importantly, it demonstrated that dangerous ideas often grow quietly, in conversations, in media, and in rhetoric that goes unchallenged. What Hitler absorbed during these years did not remain confined to Vienna.
Figures like Karl Lueger showed how powerful words could be when combined with emotion and fear. He was charismatic. As World War I approached, a young Adolf Hitler saw something he had been missing for years: purpose. Without money, career, or direction, the war offered him a sense of belonging. Although he was born in Austria, he chose to enlist in the German army, driven by a deep identification with Germany. On the Western Front, he served as a messenger, a role that exposed him constantly to danger. He carried out his duties with discipline, was wounded in combat, and received decorations for his service. Yet the most lasting impact on him was not the war itself, but how it ended. When Germany agreed to the armistice in 1918, Hitler struggled to accept the outcome. From his perspective, the army had not been clearly defeated on the battlefield. This confusion made him receptive to a dangerous conspiracy theory known as the stab-in-the-back myth. This idea falsely claimed that Germany had been betrayed internally by groups such as Jews and political opponents, rather than defeated by external forces. Despite lacking evidence, the theory spread quickly in a nation already filled with anger, humiliation, and uncertainty. The situation worsened with the Treaty of Versailles in 1919. Germany faced severe penalties, including territorial losses, heavy reparations, and strict military limitations. For many Germans, this felt like collective punishment. For Hitler, it became deeply personal. He saw it as an injustice against the nation he admired, and instead of questioning the broader causes, he returned to the pattern he had developed earlier, blaming others. Once again, Jews became the central target in his narrative, portrayed falsely as responsible for Germany's defeat and struggles. This period transformed Hitler's frustration into a clear political direction. The young man who once dreamed of becoming an artist began shaping a different kind of vision, one built on division and blame. The hardships of post-war Germany created fertile ground for such ideas. Economic collapse, including extreme inflation, left people desperate. Money lost its value, basic necessities became scarce, and many families struggled just to survive. In such conditions, simple explanations and strong promises became incredibly powerful. In 1919, Hitler joined a small political group known as the German Workers' Party. At the time, it was insignificant and largely ignored. However, Hitler quickly stood out because of his speaking ability. His speeches were intense, emotional, and designed to connect with the frustrations of ordinary people. He spoke with confidence, blamed clear enemies, and promised a return to national pride. These qualities helped him rise rapidly within the group. Soon, he reshaped the party entirely, renaming it the Nazi Party. Under his leadership, it evolved from a small movement into a political force. More importantly, his personal beliefs became the foundation of its ideology. While antisemitism already existed in society, Hitler systematized it, turning prejudice into policy and hatred into a political strategy. This marked a crucial turning point. What had once been scattered ideas and personal grievances were now organized into a movement with structure, goals, and influence. Hitler's message resonated because it offered something many people were searching for: someone to blame and a promise of restoration. In a nation struggling to rebuild, that combination proved dangerously effective. From this moment forward, the path was no longer just about one individual's beliefs. It became